Verse 7, let us rejoice and exult and give him the glory, for the marriage of the Lamb has come, and his bride has made herself ready. So, I want you to talk about this whole marriage of the Lamb and bride, but I want to look at verse 8 for a second because I think it'll show us something in another verse. It was granted her to clothe herself with fine linen, bright and pure, for the fine linen is the righteous deeds of the saint. And the angel said to me, write this, blessed are those who are invited to the marriage supper of the Lamb. And he said, those are the true words of God. So, have at it.
Okay, so there's a little bit of a background here that most people are not aware of, and I'll try to do it super fast. So the covenant at Mount Sinai, the covenant that God made with Israel, when he came down on Mount Sinai in fire, in clouds, with trumpets, with an earthquake, and Israel's at the base of the mountain, and he made a covenant with them. It was a marriage covenant. It was a betrothal ceremony. The words of the law were essentially the marriage vows. And then they said, all that you have said, I do, we agree to do all of these things. The cloud over the whole thing was the chuppah, right? The covering, that you'll see in a Jewish wedding. And then the tablets, which was written, the 10 Commandments, this is the marriage certificate. And so you have to understand, Israel was at the center of this nation was Jerusalem. At the center of Jerusalem was the temple. At the center of the temple was the Holy of Holies. In the Holy of Holies was the Ark of Covenant, in which sat the marriage certificate. And so then they rebelled and they sinned, and it was a blood covenant too, by the way. Failure to keep the marriage vows was death. And so this is ultimately the reason that we need atonement, because we're all lawbreakers. God said, this is my perfect standards. This is the requirements, and we're all covenant breakers. We're all unfaithful. And so thus he sent his son to make atonement in our place, and through the shed blood of Jesus, we now have access. But when Jesus comes back, it is to renew the marriage covenant. And this is a theme which is actually taught consistently throughout the prophets. Hosea in particular, it features very prominently. It's in Isaiah quite a bit, but it's not at Mount Sinai. This time it's up at Mount Zion. And so there will be the culmination, the marriage ceremony that began at Mount Sinai, and it was interrupted, just to be kind of, the Lord is really good at object lessons, but just to put this in perspective, they were in the middle of the marriage ceremony. It was unfolding over a period of days, and a large section of the people decided to commit adultery, to be unfaithful to their husband with an Egyptian cow god right in front of him in the middle of the ceremony. That's what the golden calf incident was. You can see why he was upset. Moses comes down, smashes the initial marriage certificate and says, this deal's off. And God goes, get out of my way, I'm just going to destroy them. And then Moses, intercedes, and he goes, okay, all right. But the point is this, it was in the middle of the marriage ceremony that it was broken. And when Yeshua comes back, when Jesus comes back, it is to complete the marriage covenant, because now he has provided through the new covenant the means by which they can keep the fullness of the law of God. They can fulfill all righteousness because he lives within them, because his spirit is in us. And we as Gentiles, if you're not Jewish, we've been grafted in and we're part of this program. And so it talks about this. And Jesus talked a lot. If you look in the Gospels, he goes, hey, the time is coming when Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob are going to come to the feast. When he says feast, this was a well-known concept in Judaism, and it was referring back to Isaiah, I'm going to say 23, but I think I'm missing that, where it says, in that day there will be a feast in Jerusalem, and I will be like a chuppah over the whole area, which is like the Lord himself will provide a cloud, a glory cloud. And so this is a theme that begins all the way back in the Old Testament, but then it culminates at the culmination of Revelation, the marriage supper of the Lamb.
Where is this at? It literally will be on Mount Zion, or is this something that goes on in heaven? Like, what is that?
It's on the ground, on the earth, in Jerusalem. Again, the Old Testament foundation for this in Isaiah, I should have had that on the top of my head, makes it clear that it will be in Zion, and that there will be a again, a cloud, a huppah. It uses the word in Hebrew, huppah, over the whole area. And so a lot of people teach that it will be in heaven, that Christians are up in heaven participating in the marriage supper, while the Jews are down on the earth getting slaughtered by the Antichrist. It was the marriage covenant is for Israel in the first place. And Paul in Romans 11 makes it clear that in the end, all Israel will be saved.
So what's the timeline for that then?
Well, Jesus returns, and he says, look, I'm not going to drink from the fruit of the vine again until I eat it afresh, drink it afresh in my kingdom.
So like, are we talking the 1,000-year reign, or are we talking before that?
No, so he comes back, and this launches the 1,000-year reign of the Messiah on the earth from Jerusalem. And what sets that all off is the marriage feast.
Okay, so that's our timeline for that.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect.